Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am S. Chandramoulishwaran, Head of IP and Products in GAVS Technologies. I, on behalf of GAVS Technologies, welcome you for this webinar on AI-driven automation to improve service reliability. Automation is one of the few trends we often hear these days. We keep hearing various types of automation. Traditional automation, which has been there for quite a number of years. Recently, we have been hearing intelligent automation, then robotic process automation, AI-driven automation, which we will talk more, and hyper automation very recently. Also, we have been thinking that the benefits of automation are just saving in human efforts. That's what we have been thinking all along. But now we have started realizing that there are some more benefits out of this automation. Today in this webinar, we will hear from two senior experts who are with me about AI-driven automation and how it helps improving service reliability. So let me introduce Vasudev and Gopalan, shortly called Vasu, who has been a dynamic digital transformation focused leader with over 20 years of experience in product engineering and software delivery. His experience spans across diverse technologies and platforms like ITOps, core banking, web, mobility, open systems, and ECM and ERP. Before joining GAVS, Vasu was in Infosys and Wipro. Infosys, he was anchoring product engineering of core banking products in Active. And in Wipro, he was delivering transformational programs for North American banking clients. In GAVS, he is currently anchoring the product engineering for ZIF. He's anchoring one of the analyze and predict module of the zero incident framework. The second guest, Alvin King Rajamani, he is also about 2 decades of experience. He's a collaborative leader with a passion for products. And he has spent his 25 years in project management, program management, and product management. He has delivered software services to various geographical regions and excelled in meeting or exceeding customer expectations. Before GAVS, Alvin worked for various IT MNCs, and he has executed IT services from offshore and onshore for multiple business verticals, the key ones being manufacturing, insurance, media, and healthcare. Alvin has been with GAVS for 8 years, and in the last years, he has been leading the product engineering for automation. Thank you, Vasu and Alvin, for taking the time to participate in this webinar. I know the participants are eager to hear from both of you, Vasu and Alvin. Before that, we want to read what the participants are thinking about the benefits of automation. So let's have a quick poll on that. What are the benefits of automation? This is a multi-choice question. You can select as many as you think. So reduction of efforts and defect elimination, which is a new trend that is coming, improving service reliability engineering, and of course, faster resolution. Participant, please take a minute to fill this one. And it will help us shape the discussion that we are going to have with Vasu and Alvin. Okay, I think a minute is over. You can see the results. Okay, I think a lot of you have said that reduction of efforts and faster resolution is the major. Of course, about half of the participants think that it also helps in eliminating defects and improving service reliability. And let's also hear from our panelists, our experts. So Vasu, let me start from you. Now that this webinar is about AI-driven automation, among the many automation that we have heard, How do you think that this AI-driven automation is different from the traditional automation? Can you throw some light on that?
Sure. Firstly, thank you, Chandra. I hope my voice is loud and clear. It's indeed, pretty excited to be in this platform, having a webinar with so many participants. So firstly, I would like to wish and pray for all the good health for all of us and all of our participants. So welcoming all of us into this webinar. So as you rightly said, how is AI-driven automation different, right, Chandra? So by now we know that AI is ubiquitous in the form that artificial intelligence has permeated our personal and professional lives. A simple aspect of we getting our mobile phone unlocked by using the facial detection, the maps guiding us for us to reach from our home to the office, the voice assistants, the various photo assistants. I think by now we have had numerous instances of AI knowingly or unknowingly in our everyday lives. Now, if we have to cut across to the enterprise side of the world, similarly, artificial intelligence has permeated into every domain. All of us know that there is not a single domain today which does not have an element of artificial intelligence or AI. So you take the domains such as healthcare, banking, IT operations, retail, e-commerce, every segment is today driven or being powered by AI and ML algorithms or the models. Now, you throw an interesting aspect of how does automation come into the play here. Now, we are all aware of what is regular automation, right? So, programs that are developed to remove any manual activities, programs that are, intended to take away the mundane set of tasks. I mean, all of them fall into the ambit of automation. While AI-driven automation extends much more than that. So we have the elements of learning, evolving, the platform trying to understand what is happening in an enterprise environment, what are all the moving variable parts that are there in an enterprise. All of these things come together in what is called as an AI-driven automation. The aspects of when a decision has to be taken and how and what an automation has to be steered in an enterprise is all driven by an artificial intelligence, and that is what we mean by AI driven automation vis-a-vis the standard automation that we may have seen in the past. Now, in the context of organizations or enterprises having a lot of varied stack, right? So we know that industries have embarked upon the legacy transformation initiatives. Some of the platforms in an enterprise would be still in the hybrid mode. There would be legacy applications, there would be modernized set of applications, and some of them could be on the premise and some of them could be on the cloud, so on and so forth. So getting an enterprise view of all of these things becomes very important, and that's where a mere automation would not suffice. So AI-based automation really, comes into the picture here. An AIOps tool such as Ziv also opens up a lot of avenues for enterprises, so that they can adopt what is called as a AI-based or AI-driven automation. So that's how I would open it up, Chandra.
Okay. Well, thanks, Vasu. I think I like the way you put it, that the decision to arrive at what and how of the automation are key traits of AI-based automation. That's very interesting. Now let's listen from Alvin. Alvin, quite often everybody mixes up with the robotic process automation and the IT process automation, if they can call that. Can you tell the difference between these two so that the participants get a clear idea of what is RPA, what is ITPA, and then we can focus our discussion on ITPA?
So Chandra, thank you for this opportunity for inviting to come and talk about on the subject, and looking forward for this session. And also I'm wishing all the participants who joined safe and wonderful time, because being the pandemic moments, so safe and wonderful listening to this this AIOps automation, so that it will be beneficial for all of us. Yeah, with that note, I'll answer to your question, Chandra, in terms of, so the RPA and the ITPA, these two jargons are generally being used across the industry And then RPA being in robotic process automation, it is always it works in conjunction with people by automating some of the repeated process. So when I say repeated process, using some untended automations, so that's where the RPA has its own limitations. And then, for example, some of the business processes automation, it helps in terms of volume-based automation, particularly in a banking sector, where loan application or a loan application approval process, the entire process can be automated using RPA. It involves certain rules, standard rules, and then the standard rules can be automated using that. But that becomes a shortage in terms of expectation, because organization need not only the rule-based automation, it needs process-based automation, and a lot of other enhanced versions of automation is required. That includes, some of those intelligent decision making within the automation platform. That's where the ITPA comes into the picture. And then beyond ITPA, again, AIOps-driven ITPA is becoming the driving stone today. And so, say example, when AI is to replace human labor and also automate end-to-end, unattended. So very clearly unattended automation. And whereas RPA uses some structured inputs and logic, while AI augmented ITPA uses unstructured inputs and develops its own logic. So that's where it can go beyond what RPA can do that. That's where the ITPA comes much handy along with this artificial intelligence capabilities. And this is that's a way, and we will also go in detail in the next questions in terms of how are we going to really see the AI-driven automation is going to benefit the organizations. Go to Chitra.
Okay, it's thanks Alvin. So you said that combining ITPA and AI create a fully autonomous process. Similarly, is there a way? Again, you don't need to answer this question, Alvin. Just a thought. Can we not combine RPA and AI and make it maybe something we can have it for the next webinar? But that's interesting. Before I go to the next question, I request the attendees, if you have any questions, please send your questions to the chat window, and we will take up these questions once the discussion here gets over. Okay. Also, you explained the AI-driven automation. I think it will be good and better for all of us if you actually explain that with one or two use cases that you think are best fit for AI-driven automation.
Definitely, Chandra. If you could bring up the slide 4, I could tee off from there. Anita, if you could bring up the slide 4. Yeah. So Chandra, as you said, today organizations are dealing with huge volumes of data. So we are aware of the fact that enterprises generate and process large volumes of data per hour, and it brings in a whole variety of data that needs to be processed. We are talking of alerts, logs, performance data in the context of an infrastructure landscape, right? And we are all well aware of the V's of a big data environment: the volume, the velocity, the veracity, the variety, and the value. So all of these are adding a lot of dynamic attributes into an enterprise in terms of what needs to be taken care of from a enterprise monitoring standpoint or enterprise analysis standpoint. Now, this is where a mere log analysis kind of a tool would fall short. The fact that there is an application A which is hosted on a server B, which is in turn connected to a router C, all of these things are interconnected in a fashion. If there is a problem or a downtime in the specific application a mere log analysis activity is not going to say that there is an interconnection here. There is a correlation of all these events that are coming together, and that is the reason for this problem to surface up. So this is precisely what machine learning or AI-driven programs from ITOps or AIOps platforms establish. So the fact that we are able to call it as a correlation feature says that the platform is able to understand the relationship between the various CIs. It could be applications, it could be devices, so on and so forth. It's able to understand the various patterns that are there happening in the given environment, understand from the history of what has happened in a given environment, and it is able to come out with insights that goes on to establish a root cause for a given problem. Says that yes, we need this kind of a correlation feature or so, which will directly result in the platform's availability, reliability to go up. And that's how you use the user experience index as well to enhance it further. Right now, we can also go on and extend and ask, how does it extend in an enterprise in terms of giving directly benefit? Now, the fact that this root cause is being established by a correlation engine, which is running under the hood of a ITOps platform like ZIF, is directly helping in the meantime to resolve that particular question to go down. So as enterprises see the trend of MTTR, as we call it in the industry parlance, once the MTTR starts going down or goes trending towards zero, we say that there is a higher reliability of the enterprise applications, higher availability of the platforms, and that directly corresponds to the higher end user experience getting bettered as well. Now, we spoke of correlation, so extending the same parlance, if we speak whether it is correlation, prediction, techbot, all of these are varied features of AIOps tool. All of these are nothing but manifestations of AI-driven automation, Chandra. And these are not going to come from a regular automation platform or an exercise.
Okay, thanks, Vasu. We have been getting a lot of questions on specific use cases in various domains. We'll address that little later, Vasu. But only one thing I want to tell the attendees that the AI, what we are talking here, AI-driven automation, is horizontal and not specific to any vertical. We'll see more of that in the coming discussion. Okay, now Alvin, so thanks. You explained the RPA and ITPA. Similarly, can you also give some real-life examples of the ITPA?
Okay, sure, Chandra. So maybe I would like Anita to bring the slide number 6. Use that as a reference.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at Chandra, I think this is the Gartner analysis, and then they talk about based on the research, what is that the current automation journey. It happens in every enterprise, every organization, from a simple automation practice to an hyper automation. So where we stand from an ITPA, and then ITPA powered by AIOps, how it helps to drive towards hyper automation is what I wanted to talk about. So the RPA and the rule-based automation stands at the very beginning. That's at the very elementary level. And then when it comes to the multiple other process automation, that's where we talk about workflow driven or maybe a business process equivalent to be converted into an automation. All that can be done through process automation. And then the conversational, which is nothing but chatbots, or we have virtual assistants and so on. So that's the next level of maturity in the journey. And we have similar automations to execute to various customers using chatbots and virtual assistants. And then the next part is basically talks about digital operations, and then also then the powered by the intelligence from AI and ML. So that's where, say example, in terms of case management, correlation, and then prediction based insights, which becomes an input for our bots. So that bots then picks it up and then do the automation end to end, so that it doesn't really wait for a rule based or an event based. It can act based on the intelligence brought in by the AI platform. I think that's a power comes in the form of the combination of ITPA, IT process automation, plus the AI intelligence. So this is where we drive towards helping the organization reaching to the maturity level of hyper automation. And then comes back few example I can bring it up here. One example could be in the interest of time, say example when there is an malicious attacks comes to an enterprise. So if the IT, in terms of the such kind of alerts comes from SIEM tool, so that alerts flows into the platform, and then our AI can pick that up alert and then send that as an event to be triggered in terms of getting those analysis in terms of whether that phishing mail or a malware attack has certain malicious or benign kind of nature. So based on that observable, it can talk to verdict tools, threat analysis tool, and get the threat score. And then based on the threat score, it can go back to the SOC analyst, or based on the value of that particular figure. Say example, if the threat is malicious, or if the threat is medium, based on that particular thing, it can go ahead and then do multiple instant responses automations. So that can be one step talking to one tool or multiple tools. All that can be accomplished by talking to ITSM, and then it can talk to email engine in terms of blocking that mail which has come from that originating places. And then in case if there is a mail forwarding rule enabled in that particular mailbox whom they access that malicious mail, so it can remove those forwarding rules and so on. So it can do a variety of end-to-end actions based on this, and then that's where the benefit comes in the form of ITPA powered by ITOps.
Okay, that's a lovely combination, Alvin. Security, automation, and AI. This is quite different. We have always heard the automation for the repetitive action. We have not seriously looked into security for automation. The examples that we have talked about, phishing and other things, are all very good. Okay, we'll come back to you, Alvin. Now, also, let's get into the topic of this webinar. All along, we have seen in the first poll question that the benefits of automation is reducing human efforts and faster resolution. Very few of us have realized that it can actually help us eliminating defects, and more importantly, it actually help us improve the service reliability. So how is automation related to the service reliability? Can you please throw some light on that?
Sure. That's an interesting area that you are steering our conversation towards, Chandra. As a SRE, as we say, service reliability, some people also allude it as site reliability. So it has been a growing culture or a discipline in the last few years, one should say. But the adoption and the way enterprises have embraced SRE has been pretty good. SRE is nothing but, if we have to blend the software engineering concepts or software engineering aspects into the infrastructure world, into the operations world, you get what is called as SRE. And we all know that Google has been doing a lot of pioneering work in this space. Ben Traynor of Google, he was in fact part of the team that originally conceptualized and established the this particular reliability engineering team within Google itself. So he goes on to say that SRE is all about automation, your self-healing capabilities, your scalability of the platform, your resilience of the platform. So as you can easily relate to, automation becomes the first and foremost pillar of how one can establish site reliability engineering, or how one can go about adopting the service reliability of a platform. And the key here is for us to codify all the operations in an enterprise. If you take the entire chain of operations, if we have to codify all that is happening in a value chain, all that is happening in the entire pipeline of events within the enterprise, be it on the infrastructure or be it on the operation side, automation is a must for that. And interestingly, we all are aware of this concept, which is toil. Toil is nothing but mundane, repetitive work which has no value, no incremental value being delivered or realized. It goes on to say that if an organization is having a higher quotient of this toil, then the lower is the value that is being produced by the organization. And so what is also pretty evident is, as the organizations start delivering more and more platforms, developing more and more business services, the natural tendency is for this toil quotient to keep going up, and that is not any good for the organization, right? And this is where SRE as a practice comes into our rescue. Now, what are we trying to do here? We are trying to take the humans and the human set of errors out of this entire process chain. And SRE has the answer for that. By doing this, it not only reduces the toil quotient and the human error and the fatigue, it also exponentially improves the system reliability aspect. And one interesting point, Chandran, for all our participants is that based on various research data that has been done across a lot of enterprises, it is very evident that 70% of the outages or the downtimes that are happening for applications or platforms or business services across the industry are because of changes that are happening in production systems. Now, you can think of the ramification of removing the human element in this entire chain of changes that are happening in a given enterprise. And if you bring in the automation and if you bring in the intelligent automation by way of the AI and ML algorithms powering them, then you have truly embraced the SRE and you have drastically reduced the toil quotient, you have drastically eliminated the human errors, and all of these will culminate in platforms having near 100%, if not 99.99% availability or reliability, and thereby the end user experience also is going to get multifold increased. So that's how the interplay of SRE and automation, all of these things come together, Chandra.
That's interesting also. Actually, it takes me back to my olden days, my CTO days, where the business users who uses the application always tell you, please don't touch the system will run fine. And that is what you're also telling. As long as we don't touch the system, I think things will run fine. Through the automation actually helps improving the system reliability. That is because it will not do the mistakes a human may do while continuously working on the system. So my next question to you, Alvin, on the elimination of defects. But before that, let's have that one more question for the participant, just to see. What's the level of automation that has been done in your organization? Just approximately, you may not have any metric. We actually use something called the process automation index. But if there are no such metric, just please let us know how much you think that you have already automated in your organization. Let's take a minute for that. Okay, is the time over? Can we close the poll? Okay, good. There are 2% of the audience says they have automated 76 to 100%. That is actually very good. What the industry says is that the best practices or best in standard is about 50%, 50 to 60%. Happy to see that some of our attendees have done more than 75%. And about half of the audience are also below 50%. That means there is still some scope for automation in their organization. Okay, now Alvin, to you the question: how do you say that automation helps in eliminating defects?
Okay. So, Chandra, if you look at the automation, helps to reduce the person hours is one among the benefits, and various other benefits that includes defect elimination. And then also we have something called reduction of cost, reduction of P1, P2 instance, and then zero errors, trending towards zero errors, increased throughput, ensuring compliance wherein the compliance requirements are very stringent, and also increase the employee engagement aspects. All that is all the benefits. Not only the defect elimination, beyond that there are much more than that. I think that's where the ITPA or the or the ITOps driven automation helps the organization to accomplish that. And then once they start seeing some results by doing certain processes to be automated, after that there are a lot of impetus to automate more processes. I think that's where we drive towards. If we take some example, real life examples in terms of how it's only helping, not only eliminating errors, beyond that, how does it really do? Take example, we did something on the storage side where there is something called snapshot automation that helps to regularly delete some of those unwanted snapshot which is beyond the age, and because of doing so it can release multiple terabytes of storage space into the data store. It might be running on VMware or might be running on Nutanix, any other platform. So those are all the way it saves a lot of cost in investing into other additional storages. And the other aspect is like from a security perspective, multi-factor authentications, enabling and enforcing them. By doing so, organization will not have any of the users logging into their network without having MFA enabled, without that antivirus updated, and all those aspects. So this way, this also helps the organization to move towards zero incidents. And the other one, from a service reliability perspective, take example of SMS services goes down in a larger banking services and so on, has a huge financial impact. So by having these automation in place, all these services are up and running so that the business critical application doesn't go down, and that way it brings in business benefits, and then the service reliability and so on. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And before I go to the next question, there is an interesting question from the audience. What's the role of AI, or is there an opportunity for AI in the DevOps? Vasu or Alvin, anyone of you want to take? Alvin, I know you have done some automation for CI/CD, right? Can you brief on that?
Correct, Chandra. Yeah. So from a CI/CD pipeline perspective, if you look at it involves various stages from a dev to QA to pre-prod to production deployment. So any application, if it needs to be deployed seamlessly into any for the end users to have access to the application and the uptime of that application, all that mainly based on how this entire system is controlled, not only from an SDLC perspective, not only from a release management perspective, and also particularly we're talking about the smoke test and other things to ensure that the product is completely protected. Right. So using AIOps, we can always run those automated testing, automated aspects, and then automated configuration management and so on. So with that, the AI comes in to help making CI/CD pipeline aspects much stronger.
Okay, thanks, Alvin. Vasu, you talked about some of the AI-driven automation. I'm sure you're also leading the engineering of building this AI as part of this zero incident framework. Can you just throw some insight on what's this ANP platform that is part of this ZIF that does this automation and improve service reliability?
Sure, definitely. If we can bring up slide 5, I'll use it as a reference point for our conversation here. Yeah. So, Chandra, as we know, the platform, the zero incident framework as an AIOps platform, comes with a lot of features that are being powered by the machine learning algorithms underneath, right? So, and it also becomes the single pane of action for an enterprise. If an organization has embraced a varied set of monitoring tools across the spectrum of network domain, application domain, server domain, so on and so forth, instead of eyeballing or doing an operations focused activity across all of these tool consoles, it is enough for an enterprise that has embraced ZIF to use only ZIF's dashboard as a single pane of action. That's why we call it as a unified dashboard. And all the tools, by virtue of having been integrated into the platform, there is a unified view that gets established here. And moving on, and the fact that there is a lot of data that gets generated, we spoke of the high trillions of data that gets generated in any enterprise. And the ITOps tool like ZIF comes into the picture to eliminate all the noise, to eliminate all the false positives, and to do a true correlation to understand what is the root cause for a sequence of events to happen or for an outage to happen in an environment. So that is what is being established by what we call as a correlation engine that is truly powered by the machine learning algorithms that keeps understanding the various seasonalities, the historic patterns. It understands what is normalcy for a given application or a device, so on and so forth. And then it culls out the sequence or patterns, and thereby it establishes correlation. Now, again, it does this based on varied categories. It could do based on a relationship of all the CIs that are available in an enterprise, or it could purely go based on the sequence mining of all the historic sequences or activities or events that have happened in a given environment. So correlations of multiple dimensions or multiple flavors are available in ZIF. And this naturally leads us towards what I spoke of on the RCA, the root cause analysis, and how it helps in an enterprise to have a decreased mean time to resolution, how the platform availability in turn goes up, so on and so forth. False positives, again, as I said, it could be in the IT operations landscape, it could be in the security landscape. We know for sure that there are a lot of false positives that keep coming, that keep surfacing, and it becomes humanly impossible for any operations team or for any command center team to understand what is a true positive versus what is a false positive. And that's where the platform comes into the aid by eliminating or suppressing all the false positives and bubbling up only the the required ones that need to be actioned upon. Interestingly, the other concept here is, Chandra, as we know, we are all very familiar with the era of static thresholds being in the industry, where we say that an application is behaving normally based on these so and so fixed parameters, or a server or a router or any CA in the enterprise is behaving normally based on its normal fixed threshold values. But that might not be true in every scenario or for every organization, because every device, every application has its own set of dynamic aspects, and they are quite different from each other. And that is where ZIF comes up with what is called as a pattern-based dynamic threshold as a feature, wherein the platform understands the huge data sets or the huge sequences of events that have happened in the given enterprise. It understands the demographics or the characteristics of a given application, of a given device, of a given router, so on and so forth. Every CI's DNA is kind of analyzed by the platform. And then the platform establishes saying that what is normalcy for a given CIA, what is normalcy for a given application B, so on and so forth. And these are quite different from each other, right? So if I have to put a rule-based framework of saying that 90% CPU utilization is the threshold, then we are talking of dynamic threshold. I mean, we are talking of static threshold. Now, if the platform comes up and says that for server A it is 96%, while for server B 98% is also your normal, then we are talking of pattern-based dynamic, and that is what is being established by ZIF. And it also helps us to eliminate and understand what is an anomaly for a given application or for a given CA, and that is anomaly detection feature for you. And next one is quite interesting, the tech bots. So we have lot of inbuilt bots which go on to establish the fact that we don't need a manual operations team or a manual command center. Everything is kind of autopiloted by the platform by itself. It could be in the form of acknowledging an incident, triaging an incident, routing it to the appropriate resolver teams across the enterprise. All of these things are realized by what we call as independent tech bots within the ZIF platform. And they are also capable of taking the remedial action as well, because we have inbuilt close to 200 workflows that are relevant in an enterprise. These tech bots, this is where AI based automation also comes into the play, Chandra. these tech bots not only understand and do the required execution of triaging of the incidents, but they extend the realm of going beyond and also triggering the workflow that is required to correct the and correct and restore the normalcy for a given situation. So that's the ambit of how tech bots fit into the overall scheme of things within ZIF. And as I said, every tool can be integrated into ZIF, whether we are talking of pushing data from ZIF into the tool, or we are talking of pulling data from the tool into ZIF. We have an universal connector as a module, which is premised on the concept of a low code, no code, and any tool in the given organization or enterprise can be integrated by just following the guidelines of a drag and drop or a mere configuration set of steps, and then the data gets ingested or the data gets pulled from those tools and they get absorbed by or consumed by ZIF in real time. All of this happens in real time. Similarly, the platform ZIF is also integrated with ITSM tools, which are pretty standard in the market, so that appropriate incidents reach the end user resolver teams as well on time. And wherever applicable, the platform goes ahead and does the remedial action as well by them and sends a mere notification to the resolver teams. And another interesting concept, Chandra, probably one of our USPs of ZIF is the predictive analytics, or how platform is able to predict a downtime in a given environment well in advance. So this is what we mean by predicting the downtime of an application or of a server. If there is going to be a disruption to the business services in the form of an application going down, or in the form of a server getting going up in its utilization of the CPU or memory, or a router having a drop in its connectivity, all of these things can be predicted by the platform way in advance. It is an opportunity for the operations team or the command center team to take action in advance proactively, or we could also wire the sequence of workflows in the platform to take care of the remedial actions by the bots or the remedial workflows as well. So this is truly another feature which is it's trying to predict in advance, and organizations can really trend towards what is called as the zero incident enterprise, and that is what ZIF is all pivoted on, Chandra.
Okay, thanks Vasu. And dear participant, Vasu has been very modest. Actually, the prediction to predict an outage, the algorithm to predict an outage that Vasu talked about, has been actually patented, and the GAVS owns the patent to predict an outage in an IT environment. And thanks Vasu once again, because you have answered a couple of questions in your response. There was a question on, does ZIF having the out-of-the-box integration with ITSM tools like ServiceNow, Sharewell, BMC? Yes, we have integration to almost all ITSM tools. And there is also another question, what's the method followed for integration and getting feed from sources to ZIF? You actually explained about the universal connector through which ZIF pulls the data. Thanks for that. Now, Alvin, what I understand from what Vasu had explained is that there are some automation built into the AA, but the AA module that is part of the ZIF may actually need some bots coming from external to execute a resolution, execute a remediation. So can you explain about the bots that you have as part of this, your automation in Zero Incident Framework? And if you can have your response in 5 minutes, that will be good. Huh?
Sure, Chandra. Yeah. Thanks for time boxing it. Yeah. Okay. So I'll ask. I think Anita has brought up the slide. So this basically talks about all the features, and let me explain. So the entire the Remediate platform, we call this, as you rightly asked, question, Chandra, in terms of how this automation bots helps by externally when there are certain calls comes in from ITOps, and then how does it really do the remediation, and then sends back the information back to the platform so that it can represent the value or the outcome in appropriate screens. I think that's how we are looking at it. From that perspective, So since it is Remediate is tightly part of the ZIF itself, so it talks to ANP, it talks to other modules within the platform. So any event or any trigger or any of those correlation based or maybe prediction based alerts comes in, that becomes an input for the Remediate platform or the Remediate bots, which is the 250 plus readily available bots that executes end to end. Sometimes one bot, sometimes maybe multiple bots, puts that into action and then gets the desired results and then send back those outcome or the output back into the ITOps engine, so that will be get reflected on the screen, so that the monitoring team who monitors the entire system knows that it has been completely remediated end to end. So that's how it works. And then all these 250 plus readily available bots have been built over a period on all the knowledge areas that include network, security, servers, database, and then identity and access management and various knowledge areas. So because of that, any organization needs in multiple areas can be automated using this platform. And then it also has completely intuitive workflow, or we call it as orchestration capability. So using that, we can build the automation workflows. Anybody can build that automation workflow using this the capability available in the platform. And then what they need to only know is the standard operating procedure, which is being followed by them. So that's how it works. And then and also, if you look at there is no coding or a programming, we drive towards a no code, low code model, and that helps to drag and drop some of these actions and activities into the workflow design. And then based on that, it go ahead and then executes the workflow. And then we also call it as bring your own workflow or bring your own bots. So this we challenge to organizations because by over a period they build certain scripts, they build their certain Ansible scripts, shell scripts, and so on. They built it to do certain kind of an automation at a very raw level. So all those scripts can be reused and then created as a bot in the platform. That's again the power adding to the system. And the third component we call it as AI-based augmented automation. So AI augmented, basically that's any trigger comes from prediction or correlation or maybe any other AI-based actions can be automated and then completed end to end. Few example could be, say example, there is a problem happening on certain CI, which is a server or a database. So that particular CI has multiple problems reported in the last, say, 6 days. So all the problem has been addressed one-on-one by one. But wherein there is an underlying issue with that particular CI. That's how there are so many alerts and so many instances got created. So this platform can look at, the AI can really bring that kind of insight, saying that there are certain problems with this. Can the problem be created and then can be resolved until the root cause analysis? All that can be done using this platform. So that's one. And then we also have self-service portal, which helps end user community to directly avail self-services and then some kind of bot services. That's where the chat bots also come into the picture. So the chatbot helps them to interact in the form of MS Teams or Slack or Facebook at work. Through that, they can avail any services that include DL management or an Active Directory ID creation or maybe password reset and so on. All that can be done using this platform. And then we also have integration to multiple ITSM tools, monitoring tools, various other tools as well. So because of that, it go ahead and then does the automation across multiple tool sets. So there is also some question which you talked about, Chandra, in terms of how is it different from SIEM automation, what the security tools does in automation. So this is completely goes beyond wide and breadth in terms of doing automation not only at the SIEM area, we go beyond IAM and then Active Directory related, Office 365 related automation when a security event happens. So that's where it is actually beyond because of the reachability and the capability of the platform. So these are all the unique selling points from a Remediate perspective.
Right. Thanks, Alvin. So I, along with the audience, actually want to hear some real experience from someone who has actually deployed this in some customer place. So I want to invite Gokula Kannan, who has been managing one of the engagement where we have deployed the zero incident framework, and he has been managing. I want him to share his experience. And Gokul is about 12 plus of ITS experience managing the IT infrastructure, and he is expert in networking and voice over IP. Currently, he has actually become an expert in managing an AIOps controlled data center. Gokul, if you can share with your experience of how you are managing your client, one of the non-finance mortgage client in US, and that will help the audience.
Yes, sure, Chandra. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I would like to just explain a use case on one of our major clients. Ultimately, we are the beneficiary of all the topics that we discussed so far, because all these automation technologies, the Zeman and the bots, is something that we use it on a daily basis on our operations. So the client that we are working for is the inventory spans across 4,000 plus virtual servers, and also their inventory of storage is approximately 6,000 TB plus. And the volume of alert that we receive in a month would cross almost 60,000 to 70,000 raw alerts here, Chandra. So using these bots and the automation process that's already have a template within our Ziff platform, we have almost near to 0% manual effort in carrying over the knock operations. I will get a bit further into it, a bit detailed into it. So any raw alerts that's coming into our Ziff platform from the source tool of our client, we first do classification of what alert is actionable versus what alert is a non-actionable alert. And all these non-actionable alerts, we use all the filter options and also the dynamic and static threshold options that's available within the platform, and filter it out as a first phase. And any alerts that's considered as an actionable alert, then we further segregate them into two different categories. One is if that alert can be automated, if it is something that can be done based on a regular workflow, and is it already available on our catalog of 250 plus predefined workflows. So if it falls into those category, the alert is directly being automated from our ANP platform, and it gets to either resolution or escalation as required, as configured in the system. And the third category is what the alerts which needed expert advice or some L3 engineers attention. So those alerts are something the manual team, the knock team has to sit, identify the alert, and then they have to choose which category it belongs to, and they need to find who is going to be the correct resolver group. That is what the traditional practice so far. But these automations coming into place and the tech bots, especially Chandra, it actually depicts all the activities that is done on a daily basis, which includes acknowledgement, and it includes the action of identifying an alert if it's already an alert that we already handled, and it identifies what category or subcategory it should go to and which team it should be triaged to. So any alert, theoretically speaking, any alert that's coming in, the customer is benefiting within the next 1 minute, rather having to wait for a manual person sitting and deciding where it should go to. The customer is getting benefited right away. So anything that's happening on the infrastructure, it's being transferred to the right person, right time for the resolution. So it's the current status here is, Chandra, we have used all these technologies and we have reached almost 90% of automation to the throughout knock performance, and the 10% is remaining, which we are seeing in a near future of going 100% of automation. And the customer I was also talking about was very happy about the complete transformation that's going on right now. And thanks to Alvin and Vasu's team for all the facilities that they have provided so far. it's making our lives easier in the NOC team here.
That's
So
wonderful, Gokul.
that's
When
a
will
live
you reach
example
100%?
of all three projects.
Okay.
Yes, Chandra.
When will you reach 100% of automation?
Right now, it's in the final phases of it, Chandra. So we are looking forward in a month or 1.5 months. That's when we'll be reaching 100% automation.
That's a dream come true, Gokul. If we have that entire NOC operations, or ZCC as we call, the 100% automated, that's the real achievement. Okay, thanks, Gokul. And let's take few questions now. And also, I combined 3 questions into one. The questions are all: are there any test cases, examples in the pharma domain, dairy industry, mining and power generation industry? Can you please answer to that?
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. So specifically in the healthcare, there is a lot of traction that we are building in, Chandra. At an organization level, definitely we are working with some of the marquee clients that we have in the US or in the Middle East that are there in the healthcare sector to understand and call out specific use cases to which ZIF can be ported towards. For example, ratification of a patient that has undergone a treatment in a given outlet or an hospital. So like that, we are trying to see or trying to predict what is going to be the mental and physical state of a given patient, considering all his historic patterns, demographics, family details. So like that, we are having some use cases where we are trying to crystallize, and ZIF is being pivoted towards them because the platform comes with all the AI and ML capabilities. Now we are trying to extend, as we said, the platform is domain agnostic at this point of time, and it is a horizontally applicable product or a platform. So any of these use cases that comes up in the domain like healthcare that I spoke of now, or we are also trying to see what is potentially achievable in the retail banking space. So these use cases become natural, contenders where ZIF can be taken towards. Chandra, that's how I would put it. I don't think we have explored much in the mining or the other domain that you spoke of, but the other ones that as I spoke of now, they are definitely in our fray.
Correct. So apart from that, as I said, the AI-driven automation is more horizontal, and that can be applied, deployed in any IT organization. On top of that, we can build some use cases like what you explained. Alvin, there is a question here. Have you created any bots that can read an user mail, understand the content, and take appropriate action?
Okay. That's a very good question, Chandra. So most of our automations are based on the input parameter, which comes in the form of mail, sometimes in the form of a database, templates, and so on. So mail is the predominant one. So mail, we can read, decipher the values, and then we can extract the values involved in that, and then based on that, we can make actions. And this is very well done for various use cases. This has become one of the standard media of input for us to do the triggers. Yeah, that's been a standard.
Okay, good. There is another question. That's an easy question, so I take it. Can ZIF work as APM? APM is one component of the monitor module of the zero incident framework. So zero incident framework has 5 modules: discover, monitor, analyze, predict, and automation. In the monitor, APM is part of that, and it can monitor all applications, dominantly .NET and Java applications. Okay, I think we have come to on top of the hour, and thank you all the participants for taking time and spending with us for an hour. And thanks Vasu, Alvin, and Gokul for sharing your experience. All of you, please stay safe and healthy, and we'll meet in the next webinar. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Chandra. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.